This video is going to show you a Solar Flawless Shattered Throne with a unique build, which I would refer to as a Volatile Blink build on a Voidwalker Warlock, with the exotic helmet Astrocyte Verse, which got a rework, a huge rework. So I'm sure you've clicked on the video and you're like, is this even decent? Is it worth a pick? And to be honest, it can be, and it is a fun playstyle. Is it meta? No, it isn't, but it is a fun playstyle if you're bored in the game, especially Warlock mains. Then this is something that you can play around with. This isn't for GMs, this isn't for like pure endgame stuff, but it is for entry-level dungeons and anything other than GMs. As long as you're not underpowered in that activity, or you're at power, shall we say, which is far and few between these days, but if that is the case, then you can go ahead and use this. It's pretty decent. So the loadouts that I'm using, you saw at the start of the video. So I've got 4 builds total. Well, technically it's only 2 builds, which is the same ability build, but each build has a different heavy weapon loadout. So for the first encounter, we know it's at dense, and a sword's just the way to go for the first section. So I'm using Fallen Guillotine because it's void. I know I could have done better probably with a eager edge sword, but that's not really the essence of the video to be speedrun Shattered Throne anyways. The essence of the video is to showcase volatile rounds to their maximum with this build, to try and get the most out of it, to show you if it's any good or not. So Fallen Guillotine, Forerunner, the exotic sidearm, which is really good for playing aggressive up close, and it's also good for long range engagements, which is nice with the setup because I'm using an SMG. So there is some long range engagements, so whenever there's long range engagements, I'll whip out the Forerunner, and that works out really well. So that's the build. I've showed you the fragments and stuff to complement everything. If there's questions about the build, then you just ask in the comments. I always, especially if somebody's asking me a direct question, I generally try to reply, generally. So I suggest you just ask, but I'll give you information about the helmet, because that's going to be the biggest question for people, is what does the helmet do after the rework? Well, it states, the description of it states, blink further, just one sec, blink further and more frequently, causing targets near you to become volatile. Weapon readies quickly, out of blink and radar, remains up. While your Nova Warp super is active, Dark Blink does not cost super energy, provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons. Right, so the description's like all over the space, right? So what does it actually do? Well, Dim will tell us this. So Community Insight states passive benefits 30 airborne effectiveness, 25% increased blink distance, and there's a decreased blink cooldown. I don't know what the exact percentage on that is, but it's noticeable. You can blink twice back to back, and then it'll proc. There's an audio cue on your character to tell you when you can blink again. It's actually really nice. So there's a bit of feedback with the helmet. And then finally, Nova Warp's Dark Blink does not consume super energy. This one's a huge one, right? And you're going to see me use it to its full effectiveness later on in the run, but that's really what it does. So it also blink and grants 100 ready handling, and the radar remains active during the animation. So it's enemies within 10 meters radius of when you blink become volatile, right? So that's what happens. So having known that, you can then take advantage of unlimited volatile with this setup. The only disadvantage to it, when we look at volatile builds in the game, what's the disadvantage to it? Well, you've got to get up close to the enemies, and you've got to blink before you start engaging with them. Whereas a hunter, a Void Hunter with Grafalcon, the chest player, can just dodge at any distance and then activate your volatile rounds, which makes it a superior volatile rounds build to this, and I'm completely aware of that. But I don't see many people talking about this helmet since its rework. I know it's not, like, as I say, super strong, but I see no one talking about it, and it was a good opportunity for me to use it in something. And obviously I'm redoing some of the dungeons, so I was like, alright, I want a cool Shattered Throne run. Well, this is a half decent watchable run, I think, because it's a gameplay playstyle that you won't have seen, or you probably won't have done, or you're less likely to. So yeah, it's really good for, as I say, getting to places. It would work well with an eager edge sword if you combine it with that, I suppose. But I just wanted to use Fallen Guillotine because of Volatile, and I like using Guillotine. So again, it doesn't matter. I don't have to use the eager edge because this isn't a. I'm not labeling this run as a speed run because this will be. If I'm going to do a speed run, then I use a meta loadout. This is not a meta loadout, so there's no point on me sort of going that extra mile with eager edge swords and stuff like this. The SMG is called the Title, which is a seasonal weapon, not a seasonal weapon, but from Guardian Games. The reason why I'm using it, and I know that some people probably have deleted it. Remember back when it was out, when everyone was farming it, and I bet everybody's deleted their rolls on it now because it's like fell out of the rotation of weapons. But in actual fact, it's a 720 RPM SMG, right? But it has Classic Contender on it, an Origin perk, which is super rare, which gives you class ability energy on kill, and it's 5% per kill. It's the icing on top when you're using Child of the Old Gods. Right, so it's the icing on top for that. So it means that I'm going to get more Rift energy when I'm getting my kills. The auto weapon to choose would be Funnel Web. It is the best Void SMG, I think, legendary-wise. But what Funnel Web lacks in utility adds up for usability, and it's 900 RPM. It just feels a little bit nicer to use than this one. But this one is just the cherry on the top for the build. And there's a bit of personal preference. Some people prefer 720 RPMs in PvE to 900 RPM. It's either or. I could have used Funnel Web and this run would have been very similar. Just a little bit less class ability energy. But, you know, it's up to you. There's not a right or wrong answer. So this run is blink only. So I never swap off Burst Glide or anything like that. I don't swap off blink, sorry. I don't use any other jump. So it's going to make it interesting for the traversal sections in this dungeon with blink. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do what a solo warlock can do with Wellskin or you know, using the traversal options that you have on solo warlock. So it's not going to be nowhere near as good that way. And if you're somebody that hasn't used blink in ages like me, you're actually going to find it a little bit difficult using it at first, which I did. But as I said, once you get it down and you sort of enjoying the run, it's enjoyable to play it. And to sort of, it comes into a sort of a mini game of, right, how many enemies can I make volatile? Blink over this guy, get a grenade, then blink over them. And it sort of comes into its own playstyle, which it is good. I just think what they would need to do with it is remove cooldown so that it's unlimited blink. However, I know it's going to mess up PvP if they did that. So my preference as a PvE player would be, alright, fair enough. PvP, if it was unlimited blink, it would cause blink shotgun to come back. Which actually wouldn't be a bad thing in PvP. Because, well, I suppose it would be, but it was obviously an annoying thing in D1. But regardless of that, I would like it unlimited blink in PvE. I'm harming nobody. We're harming nobody by having unlimited blink, no cooldown in PvE, and I think this helmet should allow that because it is an exotic. It's improved blink, 25% increase. I don't think it's enough. I think it needs to be unlimited blink, and then we're looking at maybe people using this. Because what you're going to remember is you've got to, especially these exotics that don't get a lot of usage. When you rework them, you've got to think about, well, will people maybe use this over Controverse Hold? Or Briar Binds, or stuff like that. And that's what they need to think about. Will people actually use this? And I don't want them to say, oh, well, this is a PvP exotic. This one's a PvE exotic. No, I want to see Astrocyte Verse be a pick in PvE. And the way to do it would be that it's unlimited blink. That's what they need to do with the weapon. Having me played with it today, that's my feedback. In terms of its volatile part of it, it's fantastic. And like I say, you can strategize with different setups. Look at your void exotics. You know, this would be good with Telesto. It would be good with Graviton Lance to a degree. Obviously, Graviton Lance is really good in the game now with its buffs. We just need Barrier Pulse for it to be really, really usable in endgame. But there's all sorts of things. Le Monarch, but Le Monarch's too boring for me because it's overused, that weapon. So I didn't want to use Le Monarch in this. So that's why I went with Forerunner. But Forerunner actually is really, it is meta because of the damage, the precision hit damage that it puts out at such a fast pace. And it doesn't operate like any sidearm in the game. So it's actually a good pick. Sometimes when you're up against some bosses that require precision hit damage, like say Spire the Watcher against that Harpy boss, Forerunner is a fantastic pick for it, especially if you pair it with something like a linear or whatever you might want to do. But anyways, this is what the helmet can do now. So I blink over first, then I use the dark blink off the super, and I can skip the double ogre, the ogre section with one super. We used to be able to do this, but I think it's less possible now since they nerfed Dark Blink on Nova Warp compared to what it used to do in Forsaken. But you're basically getting the uncut version of Dark Blink with the helmet. So this is just me showing it off. And you compare a Dark Blink with a standard blink in your super. You can combine the two. So there's a bit of playmaking there. This would be good in PvP, of course, for its thing. But in PvE, for sections where you want to skip, it's nice for stuff like that. And Nova Warp puts out decent damage. It's not what a Nova Bomb's going to do for you, because that's more of a DPS super, because it's instant damage right away. Nova Warp's a different style of super, right? And you've got to think about when you're looking at your super usage, and you're looking at the activity that you're doing, you need to think about, well, is it more beneficial for me to run a Roman super here? And sometimes it is. In this run, I could have run Cataclysmic and, you know, up my DPS, but it didn't matter. I solo one phase both bosses, so that's regardless. So I didn't need Nova Bomb on for that. But Nova Warp comes into its strength, well, a Roman super will come into its strength when you're dealing with priority targets in numbers, which you do in Shattered Throne. By the way, hey, I'm just farming up ammo. So I've done my loadout switch to my heavy GL with Envious Assassin Explosive Light. It's a very good roll. It's obviously a crafty weapon. It's adaptive frame GL as well, which are generally better than rapid fire frames. That's experience talking there from the past. It always was that adaptive frames were a little bit better. So that's what's going for it. I know the bait and switch Trials one's out, but I don't play Trials, and I haven't played Trials for ages, so I might have to step in Trials to go for that GL, but I'm sort of a little annoyed that there's no other GL with bait and switch apart from the Trials one. It's like, well, bait and switch GLs are for PvE. So you're forcing your PvE players to go in PvP just to get a bait and switch GL, which at some point GLs are going to be meta. They're actually decent now in the game. It's just the reason why you don't see GLs getting used that much is because rockets are that good. Even with the galley nerf, with the Wolfpack rounds and stuff, they're still that good. So you don't see GLs use it because of rockets overpowering them. But if they ever nerf rockets again, or they nerf certain frames of rockets that outclass other frames, then you might start to see GLs, especially the bait and switch style ones, come into rotation. Specifically the ones with Envious Assassin, because you don't reload. This is basically like the Lunar Faction boots where it was auto loading. You're essentially getting the same playstyle as that. It is. It's technically the same. It's in the game now, but you don't see enough people using Envious Assassin GLs. But I think there is a place for them in the game, especially when you're up against a boss that has a large design, so ogres and stuff like that can be easier hit. Wizards and stuff, not as good. The ones that hover left and right, not good on wizards, but on targets that are quite big, they're good. They're good for those type of enemies that don't move around a lot. So this is the Ogre boss, right? So obviously the Ogre boss has a mechanic. It's actually a very good mechanic. I know Shattered Throne is outclassed by the newer dungeons, but mechanically, I suppose it is outclassed mechanically, but it has got the mechanics there. It's got some mechanics that you got to think about. The problem with Shattered Throne I suppose, isn't the mechanics. It isn't really the ad density, because the ad density is quite there. And I think what it is the health pools of the bosses. They need to buff them. I'm not a fan of wanting bosses needed to be buffed in HP, but in Shattered Throne's case, it needs to happen because at some point, which they've actually done stealth buffs to these bosses, especially the wizard, the final boss, has been buffed once or twice. Stealth, by the way, wasn't in the patch notes. I'm going back 4 or 5 seasons. So that boss has been buffed. Whenever they do that, they need to do it again and maybe nerf the crit multiplier for the final boss and buff the ogre's boss. We shouldn't be able to solo one phase these bosses so easy. It does require some setup, which you can see. I've got armor charge on the left hand side. I'm going to do a surge switch coming up, which obviously I've got that already sorted out, so I'll have triple void surge on my boots when I do my swap. But the way I'm doing it here is just clearing everything as I come to it. So clearing the enemies with, my Child of the Old Gods, my nades, going in with the Devour chain killing, whipping out Forerunner to mop up any wizards. It melts them really quick, especially the fact that they're debuffed. Not using any heavy, of course. No heavy to be used, because that's all going to be used for the boss. But a good trick with this helmet is doing a nade on enemies and then blinking over them. That'll make them volatile, and then they'll just die as you blink over them. And then if the wizard's caught in that volatile reaction, then obviously the wizard's got volatile attached. Plus you get volatile rounds via the fragment that I've got on, so it's just volatile all the way around. Like I said, it's not quite as good as Grafalcon, but that might be more of a Grafalcon problem than this helmet. But as I said as well, it should be unlimited blink to make the helmet usable in PvE. That's what they would need, like, for it to be really popular. And then you might start seeing some Voidwalkers. And there's nothing to say that you have to use Nova Warp. I could have used Nova Bomb. So we're going for damage now. We're now baiting the boss behind this pillar. There's a pillar that stops the boss from... Well, it doesn't always stop. Like, this was kind of bad. I do end up rifting, but the boss kept knocking us back. This was actually really unfortunate. So we've actually lost quite a lot of time. So I'll blink over the void stuff and then just use all my heavy GL. This actually... We got really unlucky with the boss, but it also showcases how good the heavy GL is. Because we lost so much time, we easily still get the solo one phase within seconds. So that's actually really good. Just that the boss... I was trying to use that short pillar. Generally it doesn't play out that way, but it did. But that's fine. An unfortunate set of events meant that we could use Blink in an aggressive way to tip the odds in our favour. That's what I like about Blink, is that you can sort of play aggressive with it and avoid enemy fire. Which I used to use Blink a lot more in 2017 with the old Voidwalker Devour back then. Just because there wasn't a lot in the game back then. But I did used to use a bit of Blink in PvE. But it sort of fell out of rotation. Then this helmet came out, but then the helmet was just only about Blink. That's the only benefit it added, was it improves Blink. Which was, for PvE purposes, it wasn't enough. But now they've reworked it, it is enough. It's just that the Blink cooldown needs to be, I think, for PvE at least, not PvP, PvE, unlimited Blink. And then you're looking at something, because then it's got a high skill ceiling in this class when I'm playing. You've got to master Blink. Right now I'm not in that sort of playstyle of Blink, because I've only played with it today. I haven't played with Blink for probably 2 years. Easily. I haven't bothered with Blink. Because there's no reason to, and especially on a Warlock with Burst Glide, the amount of speed that you can get with a Warlock on Burst Glide, it's a no-brainer to use Burst Glide and not Blink. But in this scenario, I'm showing you a unique playstyle of what it's like with Blink, with this helmet. And the gameplay, the footage will speak for itself. You'll be able to make your own mind up if you want to have a mess around with the build. And I recommend that you do, especially when there's nothing going on in the game and you're bored. And if you are a Warlock main, try it out. See what you think. You might be able to pair it with a different sort of void exotic that you can think of. You know, you could even put on Tractor Cannon and then buff your Nova Warp even more, right? So then you've got your Tractor Cannon, and then you could put on, you know, a Shotgun or whatever you might want to do, or a Void Fusion or Telesto. There's all sorts of different combinations you can do. I just use the combination that I've got now to be relevant for the activity that I'm doing. So we're going to do a skip here, which I need a super for. Like I said to you, it's only a blink run. So one rule of this run is that I can't use Burst Glide or any other jump. So in order to do that, to make the blink run of Shattered Throne, blink only run doable, is to do the skip that I've just showed you. Because if I go on the cliffs, you know where the cliffs are, where you get hit by the Taken Rifts, doing blink on that outside wall is going to be a high chance of death for me, because as I say, I'm out of the rotation of playing with blink. We're just going to speed up this footage, because all I'm doing here is farming up super energy and heavy ammo, which I've got my heavy ammo anyways. I've got elemental munitions on so that I get heavy when I, you know, have a chance of getting heavy. I've already got max heavy right now, 16 shots. That's more than enough. I don't even need 16. That's how good this run is. Not this run, but this loadout for what's coming up, the final boss. Because the play loop of the final boss was, the boss isn't too threatening, but the 3 knights are. And then you have unlimited spawn and scions, which when it launched out front, this was a problem to people. There was a combat experience, not now because you one phase everything, but back when you didn't, or you were doing this the first time, you're like, what is this? Where do I move? There's nowhere to hide. So if you have to do 2 phases on this boss, or even 3 phases back in the day, there was difficulty there. That's why I'm saying, if they buff the boss's HP in Shattered Throne, it'll feel a little bit more difficult to run, which will be a bit more healthier for the dungeon, rather than us being able to solo 1 phase all the time. Solo 1 phase is nice, but when we're doing it all the time, it dilutes the actual challenge of doing the dungeon, you know, as opposed to if you do a Ghost of the Deep, a little different, because, you know, it's probably challenged too much. There's too much HP on those bosses. But anyways, we're going to get a Rift Arm and then Super for the 3 knights. Nova Warp's going to come into its own and kill all 3 knights, because it's doing detonation damage to all of them, and they were volatile. I've just cleared the full room with 1 super, 1 nade, and that's it. So that means I can pick up my Final Thoughts buff, right? I can get a debuff with Child of All Gods again, right? Do some Forerunner damage, and then just all heavy GL, and you'll just see that the boss just gets melted from here because of the triple void surge, explosive light, and all that sort of stuff. But that was Soul Flaws for this. Thank you.